Hello and welcome back to the channel on an all new extra report. Today's extra report is called Gypsy Rose, first act off Parole, Twisted Tale to Freedom. If this sounds interesting, please stay tuned.
Who that is, what that is. I wanted to know, so this way I know what I'll be dealing with. And unfortunately, that part of me wanted to come out for a very long time, and the very first opportunity it got, I didn't waste any time in basically trying to make an example out of somebody, unfortunately. That dark shadow part of me that really is triggered by anger. It's triggered by anger. The sweet, innocent me that I usually wake up to every day is not there. It's a completely different person.
The ink had barely dried on Gypsy Rose Blanchard's parole release papers before she made her next move. And it wasn't to rebuild her life in peace. No, Gypsy couldn't wait a single day, not even a single second, past June 25th, the official end of her parole, before launching a public smear campaign against the very man she once manipulated into doing her dirty work, Nicholas Godejohn. It's almost poetic. In the most unsettling way, the moment she gained complete freedom, she didn't run towards a new beginning. She rushed to the internet, armed with screenshots, twisted narratives, and a well-rehearsed victim act that we all know from Gypsy Rose. One of her first actions? Posting old messages from a woman named Dawn. Messages allegedly tied to Fancy Maselli, a former associate turned rival who once attempted to work with Gypsy and her family on a documentary that never came to light. Yeah, back then, Fancy tried to get close to the Blanchards, supposedly to help tell Gypsy Rose's story. But those friendly beginnings soured, and the fallout was more like a behind-the-scenes war than a creative partnership. You see, Fancy wasn't just any other filmmaker. She was close, too close. Fancy wanted to tell the story of Gypsy Rose's life. But when that deal soured, Fancy orchestrated something far more manipulative, an infiltration group. And at the center of that plan was a woman named Dawn, down on her luck, emotionally vulnerable, and desperate for a quick financial fix. Fancy allegedly recruited Dawn with one purpose: to befriend Nicholas Godejohn, pose as a love interest, and extract information from him. The goal wasn't to help Nick. The goal was to provoke him, get him to expose his so-called victor personality. In the end game, use those messages to paint Nick as an unhinged and unredeemable, making sure he never got another appeal and ensuring Gypsy's image stayed cleaned. And here's the twist. All of this went down while Gypsy was already incarcerated. Well, at the time, she was fighting to get an earlier release than her original release date in December 2023. At the time, Nick was preparing for trial, unaware that he was being baited. Nick thought he was connecting with someone who cared. Instead, he was walking into a trap. Dawn, in her own words, says she claims that she didn't know the full plan would backfire on Nick. She believes she was helping Fancy demonstrate that Nick needed psychiatric care and not life behind bars. But what she didn't realize was that the so-called filtration group was less about mental health and more about narrative control. Fast forward to February 2025, Dawn speaks out in a public interview. She reveals the truth that Gypsy, her stepmother Christy, and even Ken Urker were fully aware of who she was. They were allegedly all working together behind the scenes, each playing their own angle. Gypsy stood to gain the most: an earlier release, public sympathy, and a cleaner image. Christy and Ken, their motives remained questionable, but they were part of the circle. But not so much as Ken alleges that he didn't know or never claimed to see those email messages between Nicholas Godejohn and Dawn. Now, Gypsy, newly off parole, is digging up these old emails and leaked conversations, using them to, quote, speak her truth, end quote. But it raises the question, if your truth was real, why did it require so much deception? In this particular audacity of a clip, Gypsy Rose goes on to say, quote, I will not carry his actions, meaning Nicholas Godejohn, on my shoulders any longer. I've taken responsibility for mine. The next chapter is one of healing, one of growth, of reclaiming my life. This is freedom, and I'm moving forward with clarity, peace, and self-forgiveness. The justice system has decided. This case is closed. This is justice for Dee Dee, as well as myself, who the system failed all my life. But you see, Gypsy's legal team crafted a perfect storm of pity and manipulation. A curated defense built not on strong forensic evidence, but on optics. Gypsy's soft-spoken, childlike voice paired with her sickly appearance and her shaved head did half the work. The rest, a sympathetic public and legal system that leaned on emotion rather than fully disclosed facts. Her deal, a sweet pardon in comparison to Nicholas Godejohn's life sentence, wasn't the result of innocence. It was strategy, politics, and optics. And since that deal, though information once buried or overlooked has surfaced, records, statements, FOIA documents, and overlooked inconsistencies have led many to question the narrative that won her leniency. But Gypsy isn't slowing down. Instead, she's thriving in the spotlight, flaunting her freedom like it's a prize for good behavior rather than a legal loophole, and has the audacity that this was justice for her mother, the mother that she took off of earth when she gave her life. So Gypsy goes on to say that she's won, that her haters wanted her to fail, and now she's proven them wrong. All right, Gyps. The truth is, people who are truly innocent don't need to constantly defend themselves. They don't spend their first free moments tearing down others to keep the heat off themselves. And they certainly don't live online trying to rewrite the past. One post at a time. Because real justice doesn't always come wrapped in headlines or viral sympathy. Sometimes karma takes its time. It doesn't knock on your door with a warning. It arrives like a thief in the night, silent, calculated, and long overdue. And trust, Jip Jip, yours is way overdue. Justice for Dee Dee. We will never forget what you did.
Oh my God! What happened to him? All the trips and expenses are for my boy. I just want him to have a good remaining life, and I can only work a few hours a week for my job because I'm the only one here to take care of him.
Anything at all, I'm here for you too.
Thank God I put you in acting classes.
Mom, I can't keep doing this.